At first glance, it looks like a picture-perfect postcard, a nostalgic, tranquil winter afternoon draped in a heavy blanket of pristine white snow. We see frozen ponds shimmering in the distance, dotted with dozens of tiny figures ice skating, playing games, and laughing. It is an image so deeply embedded in our collective cultural memory that it has become one of the highest-selling Christmas cards in human history. But look closer. Look at the slump of their shoulders, the heavy drop of their heads, and the hollow fatigue in their steps. Look at the rib cages of their hunting hounds, marching with their tails tucked away in defeat. Welcome to Story Behind the Painting by Muzea. Today, for episode 27, we are braving the biting cold of 1565 to unwrap Pieter Bruegel the Elder's magnum opus, The Hunters in the Snow. Behind this seemingly innocent winter wonderland lies a dangerous reality, a world teetering on religious execution, a catastrophic climate anomaly, and a brilliant master artist who risked everything to hide a fierce theological commentary right under the noses of empires.
Welcome to Story Behind the Painting, where we dive into the most famous art routes and learn a lot from that.
To truly understand this masterpiece, we must walk through its brilliant composition. Bruegel frames this world using a high vantage point, almost like a bird observing humanity from a detached but fascinated distance. Our eyes are immediately drawn to the left foreground where three weary hunters are returning to their village. Their expedition has been an utter disaster, and their entire day's catch amounts to a single scrawny fox slung over a shoulder. The fox was caught not for meat but for its fur and to protect village poultry. To add insult to injury, Bruegel paints a trail of fresh rabbit tracks cutting right across their path. Just ahead of the hunters sits a local inn where villagers are frantically building an outdoor fire. They are participating in the singeing of the swine to prepare a hearth to roast a pig, yet the animal itself is nowhere to be seen. Dangling precariously above them from a single broken hook is the inn's crooked sign depicting St. Hubert. The sign reads, "Dit is tegen den hart," meaning this is the golden heart, and its broken state suggests the saint has abandoned the hunters today. From this summit of misfortune, Bruegel uses a rhythmic row of evenly spaced bare trees to plunge our vision down into the valley. On two massive frozen ponds, a vibrant community of over 60 people is unfolding with games and winter activities. Villagers are playing golf, practicing an early form of curling, ice fishing, spinning tops, and pulling one another on sleds. But even amidst this joy, danger looms in the far distance, where a house fire is raging. Crows sit in the trees like dark omens, and a magpie swoops across the pale sky, signaling misfortune. Completely dominating the background are gargantuan, snow-covered, jagged mountains rising sharply against the horizon. To understand why Bruegel painted such a tense narrative of survival, we have to look at the exact year this panel was created, 1565. The location is northern Flanders, in the Low Countries. During this exact window, northern Europe was plunged into the darkest, most brutal phase of what scientists call the Little Ice Age. The winter of 1564 to 1565 was one of the most severe on record. It was so bitterly cold that icebergs literally crashed into the port of Rotterdam and water reserves froze solid. The watermill wheel we see on the right of the painting is frozen completely stationary, meaning no grain could be ground. Birds froze mid-air and dropped dead from the skies. For the common peasant, winter wasn't an aesthetic choice. It was a deadly battle against famine, illness, and frost. But the weather was only half the nightmare. The Low Countries were under the iron fist of the Spanish Habsburg Empire, ruled by King Philip II, a fanatical defender of the Catholic faith. At the exact same time, the Protestant Reformation, specifically Calvinism, was exploding across Flanders. Expressing the wrong religious belief could get you publicly executed, tortured, or exiled. Just 1 year after this painting was completed, in 1566, this pressure cooker exploded into the Beeldenstorm, where Protestant mobs destroyed Catholic art and church decorations. This is why Bruegel's details matter so much. The empty bird trap in the center of the snow represents the devil waiting to trap unsuspecting human souls with earthly temptations. The broken St. Hubert sign wasn't just a sign of a bad hunt. It was a veiled critique of the deteriorating state of the old Catholic faith under corruption and reform. Bruegel masked his theological and political anxieties inside secular, everyday winter scenes, so he could speak his truth without being killed for heresy. Though The Hunters in the Snow focuses entirely on the struggles of the working poor, it was not made for them. Bruegel's mass-market prints were cheap, but his lavish oil paintings on wood panels were luxury items. This piece was commissioned by Nicolaas Jonghellink, a phenomenally wealthy merchant, banker, and art collector based in the global trade capital of Antwerp. Jonghellink commissioned Bruegel to create a massive unified cycle of 6 paintings tracking the seasons of the year, deeply rooted in the medieval manuscript tradition of the labors of the months. Back then, Europeans didn't divide the year into 4 neat seasons, but rather 6 unequal periods. Today, only 5 of these 6 masterpieces survive: the gloomy day, the hay harvest, the harvesters, the return of the herd, and finally, our winter scene, the hunters in the snow. Jonghellink hung these large panels all together on the walls of his grand dining room. Imagine sitting at a lavish merchant's feast, surrounded by immense wealth, while looking up at a complete, immersive 360-degree visual narrative of humanity, simultaneously playing, sweating, freezing, and enduring the cyclical forces of nature. So, who was the mastermind behind this sophisticated lens? Pieter Bruegel the Elder was born around 1525, likely near Breda. Despite his famous nickname, Peasant Bruegel, he was not a poor farmer. He was a highly educated, sophisticated urban townsman who socialized with Antwerp's intellectual elite. However, Bruegel possessed a profound, unmatched empathy for the common folk. Historical records show that Bruegel and his close friends would frequently dress themselves up in coarse peasant clothing, blending seamlessly into village weddings, markets, and festivals, just to observe human behavior without the constraints of high society etiquette. This intimate first-hand observation is exactly why his figures feel so incredibly alive. They aren't frozen in the stiff, idealized, theatrical poses of the Italian masters. They have weight, individuality, and gravity. Bruegel painted real people doing real, unvarnished things, tripping on the ice, working until their bones ached, and huddling together for warmth. Bruegel's contribution to the trajectory of Western art cannot be overstated. He was a radical pioneer. Before him, the dominant art world, particularly in Italy, looked down upon landscape and everyday life. The great Michelangelo openly mocked Netherlandish art, claiming that painting landscapes was a mindless exercise that only appealed to women and monks. To the elite, art was only worthy if it depicted glamorous kings, holy saints, or mythological gods. Bruegel flipped the script entirely. He took ordinary people and the spaces they occupied, and moved them from the tiny margins of illuminated manuscripts straight to the absolute center of monumental art. He effectively birthed genre painting, the art of everyday life. Look at those massive mountains in The Hunters in the Snow. They are a complete topographical lie. There are absolutely no mountains like that in the notoriously flat terrain of Flanders. When Bruegel traveled to Italy as a young man, he was deeply moved by his trek across the Alps. A biographer famously wrote that Bruegel swallowed the mountains and rocks and spat them out onto his canvases. By fusing real Flemish village life with imaginary memory-constructed alpine peaks, Bruegel invented a brand new form of landscape painting driven by emotion, atmosphere, and grand visual storytelling. Pieter Bruegel the Elder died tragically young in his late 40s, leaving behind only about 45 paintings. Though his work directly paved the way for the legendary Dutch Golden Age a century later, he was largely forgotten by the wider public for generations, dismissed as old-fashioned. It wasn't until the 20th century that the world fully woke up to his genius. The Hunters in the Snow endures because it is a grand tapestry of our shared human condition. It doesn't tell the history of kings or wartime heroes. Instead, it captures the beautiful, bittersweet tension of what it means to be alive. It shows us that joy and hardship, failure and community, beauty and menace all share the exact same sky. It reminds us that our lives unfold in the shadow of forces far bigger than ourselves. And yet we keep skating, we keep hunting, and we keep moving forward. Every great painting has thousands of hidden secrets waiting to be uncovered. If you want to explore the deep narratives, microscopic symbols, and historical truths behind the world's most iconic masterpieces, don't stop here. Go ahead and download the Muzea mobile app right now, available on both iOS and Android. With Muzea in your pocket, you can transform your smartphone into a personal, world-class art historian, unlocking immersive audio guides, stunning high-resolution details, and curated collections designed for the curious mind. Thank you for tuning in to episode 27 of Story Behind the Painting. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and download the Muzea app today. Until next time, keep looking closer.
Welcome to Story Behind the Painting, where we dive into the most famous art works and learn a lot from that.